Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and we're going to have a fairly quick little video today, and this is over just nothing major, just a very small spat on my Facebook. Nothing that got really bad, just something that pulled my friend's religion into it, and this and that, and all this and that. And this is something that I've known for a while, obviously, is, Islam doesn't necessarily teach violence. It doesn't teach violence, just like, you can go back to the Old Testament, and if they use the Old Testament, you can see violence, just like, they use pretty much the same Old Testament that Christians use, and if you go back and read your Old Testament, you're going to find some violent ass shit in there. You're going to find things along the lines of killing an entire village to the last person over someone not being circumcised. Now, technically, I would guess Muslims are the same way. I didn't actually research this, but I have researched other shit that I'm going to do, and one of the links to one of the sites is going to be in the description. The one where the majority of this came from. But yeah, I would assume just like Christians are not supposed to follow the Old Testament, but I'm assuming some of them do, and that's when you get a lot of that hateful shit. The same way a lot of the hateful shit you get from Christians is coming out of your Old Testament. Shit that they're not really supposed to be preaching, but I'm not going to tell them how to run their religion. I hear people say, well, that's the Old Testament, and then the rest of the country, turns around and does this. So I guess you can look at it different ways. The same way, you had Protestants and Catholics in Ireland during the 90s warring and killing each other, shooting kids on the way to school. Religion starts a lot of shit in the world, and it's not really fair to blame any religion for being violent. Because the majority of them, except for Buddhists, I don't think I've ever heard of a Buddhist terrorist, but I've heard of Christian terrorists, I've heard of Muslim terrorists, and the thing is, I don't consider them necessarily Christian or Muslims, they're just fucking terrorists, they're psychopaths. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Now, the name that these first two came out of, I'm probably going to fuck up. It's at Twab, something, it's like AT-TAWAB. Now, apparently that translates into the repentance or something like that, and this verse comes from, and this is all slightly paraphrased, just small parts taken out to make the writing easier on me since I wrote this by hand. But I'm from chapter 9, verse 111. The Quran says, the Muslim Bible, and this is the one where people say, well, oh, the 99 virgins thing. This is where people get this from, and see if this makes fucking sense to you, how they get this out of it. The 71 virgins out of it or whatever. God has purchased their lives and their properties in exchange for their life in heaven. A true promise upon God and the gospel, and who is truer than God, so be happy in the deal. Now, it's somewhere else in there, and it said, I forgot, I guess I skipped over that when I was writing, but I did want to put that in, that I'm, and in the preachings, they're going to kill and be killed. Now, when it says shit like that, here's what makes sense to me. Islam came up after Christianity. Islam came up around the time the Christians, not to say Christians are necessarily warlike like this now, but this is when the Romans were running shit, and they were pretty much committing genocide on a massive scale against Hellenists, various other pagan groups around the world. Well, Europe, really. That little area. A whole lot of war. They had wars before, but nothing. It's proven, if you go back and look, that any war fought over religion is going to be 10 times bloodier, 10 times more cruel, just fucking 10 times, I'm trying not to cuss in this video, 10 times more awful than one that's over land or resources or power, slaves, anything like that. A war over religion is always going to be worse. World War II wasn't necessarily over religion, and it was pretty bad. True, but that was the worst war in history. But, if you compare, like something like Vietnam to the Crusades, you kind of get an idea on how bad it gets. Now, like I said, they came up at a time whenever Christianity was spreading its influence, and Christianity was spreading its influence by the sword. So to say that God's got you covered, and I'll explain this later on in the video, where this might come in, that if you kill in a combat, and if you get killed and all this and that, God's got you covered. That's pretty much what it was coming into. Now, that was chapter 9, verse 111 of the repentance in the Quran. Now, chapter 9, verse 114, it's talking about Abraham. They had a lot of the same prophets that you see in Christianity, that you see in Judaism. They just broke up in different ways. Christians believe Jesus was the true prophet, son of God. Muslims believe that Muhammad was the final prophet, but he was not the son of God, and Jesus wasn't the son of God. And Judaism believes that Muhammad and Jesus were not prophets, and that God had sent all the prophets he was going to send by the time Jesus came, and that he was a fake. Now, like I said, chapter 9, verse 114, and like I said, this is slightly paraphrased, not a whole lot taken out. I guess that was just me trying to write quick. That skipped that one part about the killing killed. Abraham asked his father for forgiveness only because he had made a personal promise to himself. And when he realized his father was not going to turn and was an enemy of Allah. Notice how he says enemy. And this is the thing that people are going to go, oh, well, here's the head cutting off part. Abraham cut off connection to his father. He decided he did not want part in his father's life, what that means. And he showed compassion and patience. Now, here's the part when some people that, were taught different growing up, that, this particular religion we're in discussion of today, Islam, is cutting people's heads off and doing all this shit. But his father was an enemy, and he just, alright, well, patience, I'm guessing that would mean, well, let me know when that changes, and compassion. And I'm guessing compassion is along the lines of, it wasn't angry, because, when you have a family member and they're going against your beliefs, you tend to get a little more pissed than you would if it was someone else. Especially, that's what I've experienced in my experience. If someone else has something different, saying that, oh, no, it's always worse when it's not with a family member, that's just my experience. That's how I'm expecting it is with everyone. A fight with a family member is genuinely worse than a fight with anyone else, or it seems like it. Kind of like how a war over religion is worse than a war over land. Now, back into that killing thing that we talked about earlier. Now, from chapter 5, verse 32. This is where this whole God got you covered thing came back in. And it says, if you kill a man, it is like you have killed all of mankind. And if you have saved a man, then you have saved the whole of mankind. Now, what does that sound like to you? That killing is extremely fucking wrong. Killing is very freaking wrong. And don't do it. It's very bad. Saving people is good. That's what it says. Now, people can get upset. That is where the verse ended. And say, well, he meant that the only real people are Muslims and that screw all non-believers. Now see, that is what a terrorist might get out of it. And then think, oh, well, then it's okay to kill Christians and Jews. And then go off and do that. That's part of that whole thing that people shouldn't do. And that's looking farther into something for a meaning that's not there. It means what it says. If you kill a person, then you've done something really wrong. But if you save someone, then you've done something pretty damn good. Pretty dang good. Try not to cuss since this is a more serious video, and I don't want to be saying just dropping bombs all over the place, but yeah, that's it. It's chapter 5, verse 32. You can go look it up. Now, this one, I did not get off the same side as the first two. I got this one off because I wanted to search this one in particular, and I did not remember the verse, so I just typed up the first few words of it that I already knew because I have searched this a little bit before. And I got this from answeringmuslims.com. The verse about kill a man and it is like you have killed all of mankind. Now you can go and you can look that up yourself and you can find other stuff to it. I mean, I gave you the chapter and the verse and it's in the Quran. You can go look and you can dispute this with me if you'd like. You can. And like I said, link to the description to the verses from chapter 9. Dispute that if you please. But I'm giving it to you here. And you can take that as you will and take it as maybe it's a little misconstrued, because what's something that every country does whenever they're at war with another country and people with various beliefs? They do propaganda. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because it works. If you're sending young men to do bad things and for the sake of this, and that still doesn't mean a young man wants to kill somebody. Same reason I don't want to kill somebody. But desensitizing makes things a little easier. In World War I, we told people that the Germans were taking their dead bodies of their casualties, and they were turning them into soap to help the war effort, to make them sound like monsters. We do things like that. We say horrible stuff about the Japanese during the war. In kids' comics, it wasn't uncommon for Superman to quote-unquote slap a Jap. That kind of stuff wasn't uncommon. That was desensitizing the populace. That's what you do in a war. It works. Like I said, propaganda works. I mean, you don't want to show the enemy off as this, well, they're people too and everything. And I'm sure there's a reason behind this. That makes things hard. And that's when you get messed up things. I mean, and I can see them wanting to spread a lot of hate over the kind of shit that happened in Vietnam. Coming home, like the first generation to call people coming home from war murderers and baby killers and throwing things at them and spitting on them in uniform as they're coming down the road coming home from a year of combat, from a year of hell, from a year of watching your friends die, from a year of having to kill people, and you treat them like that. And there was a draft going on. So these people were saying, these people were pretty much saying that if you're not going to prison, then you're weak. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd honestly take my chances on a battlefield hell of a lot quicker than I'd take my chances in prison. Because you know what happens in prison? Bad stuff. I mean, in war, there's a chance to not be stripped of your morals. In prison, there's not much of a chance of that. Really, if you want to be safe in prison, you're going to do bad things. I haven't heard any stories of anyone in prison in the last 20 years that have been flying straight edge. Now, my grandfather was in prison during the 60s. And I think just coming into the 70s a little bit, if I remember right. He said back then it wasn't bad like it is now. A little crazy, a little hectic at times. Definite fights and some violence, but not Nazis and huge gangs that are solely based out of prisons. Now, do you know what happens if you go to a prison? Not jail. Jail's not shit. Jail is just, oh, well, I don't get to go outside and I'm breaking out because the soap's bad. Prison is like genuine, people are dying. People are fucking dying. People don't normally die in jail. I have friends that have been to jail. They're like, jail was literally a lot like school without classes. They're like, it's mostly people riffing and working out and bitching about things. That's all it is. In prison, people really die. People really have to join gangs to keep bad things from happening to them, to keep from dying, to keep someone from selling their body for cigarettes. You really have to do bad shit. I got off topic a little bit from the whole why propaganda is good. And they were using some propaganda in Vietnam, but really you don't hear of a whole lot of pro-war propaganda from Vietnam. It was just kind of the, hey, Uncle Sam needs us, guys. That's about all they got, and that communists are bad. Like I said, a war fought over views, such political, not going to be as bad as a war or fought as hard as a war over religion. In Vietnam, the American people, I mean, then again, we weren't per se attacked by a group that claims to follow that particular religion. But then again, when it was over politics, people were like, ah, dude, fuck it, it's not our country. It's not like Vietnam is some fucking powerhouse. Fuck it, dude. Who gives a shit if the commies take it? I just said a lot of cuss words, knowing that I wasn't trying to, but damn. There goes that. See how that's all about how long I can keep my mouth clean. About a minute, about 11 or 12 minutes, and then I'm screwed. So, but one fought over religion. People are just more willing to die. I mean, the Germans were Christians. We shared some common ground. Now, people were genuinely a little more hated, had a little more hate towards the Japanese. But that's because that was one time when America was kind of in the, you know, the whole dicey, racy such. And because they were different, not necessarily in a sense of religion. I don't even know much about Japanese religion. As far as I know, I don't think they have it. I think we read a little bit in school about it, and I don't think I found anything religious. It was just explainings on why people may be bad and that why people are good. And it might have been Chinese, honestly. I might have just really offended the fuck out of some people by saying that. But if the Japanese do have a religion, someone feel free to tell me. I would assume that it would be Buddhism. I guess if I could assume that there was one, I would assume that'd be it. Don't know. That was mostly just because they look different. Anyway, I have the information cited below. I've said that the other one was found in AskingMuslims.com. Feel free to go look it up. Feel free to refute me in the comments. Feel free to say you agree. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe if you're new to my channel. And I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something today. And that is not to hate someone solely on what you may hear on TV. Because what you see on one news station, you will see it completely different on another news station. If I have to recommend that you get your news, I recommend that you don't just take my word for this stuff. I recommend you go to several different websites and you look for what you can find and then you check that information. You check it. Yeah. Because I'll go to one. Yeah, I can go to some websites and it'll give all this information on why Islam is nothing but murder. And then you go to another one and I cannot find anything on murder. I can find some things that some people might find dicey and some people might find something bad in. But I'm not finding anything directly go kill the non-believers. Death to them all, rape women and rape children. Like the other sites literally say, this verse says here to rape women and rape children and beat them savagely. And to own sex slaves. And for a woman to prove that she is raped, and I don't know why a woman would need to prove that she was raped or why it would be a problem if the Bible says that that apparently if it says that you can rape them, why would they need to prove it? I don't know. Seems like you fucking checked yourself. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Please feel free to go read these websites. There's so much more to the first website that I didn't put in because I did not feel the need. I did not feel like I needed to go through and do 10 different verses. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a fantastic day, and as always, it is the Lit Show. People of this galaxy.